Floresville ISD, and thank you for coming out to our second community calendar meeting. Is the volume too loud for you guys? I've been trying to adjust this mic. Does it seem too loud? I'm trying to step back. Are you okay? Ms. Brianna, am I good? Not blasting you? Okay, good deal. I also want to recognize other people from the district who are present tonight. We have our superintendent, Dr. Jason Gilstrap, our assistant superintendent of operations, Mr. Mike Schroller.
Good evening.
We have a board member, Mr. Stephen Shadrock, actually our board president, excuse me, Mr. President. We have two principals with us tonight from the high school, Mr. Holden Barrett, and from here at the middle school, Mr. Jim Wright. So thank you guys for being here. So tonight I will be sharing information about our calendar development process. We will be sharing about the frequently asked questions that was released in December and the results of the calendar survey. And then at the end of the presentation, I'll provide an opportunity for anyone who would like to provide us with some feedback. Everyone will be given 2 minutes, and I just ask that you sign up on that pink paper back in the back with Ms. Ramos. Just as a reminder, FISD's mission, vision, and beliefs guide our decision making to make sure that we accomplish our goals of excellent student outcomes, a superior workplace environment, exceptional customer service and community engagement, and strategic resource management. So since our first meeting that was held in December, we launched a calendar survey that was released on December the 9th. And we released the frequently asked questions on December the 16th. So that frequently asked questions document includes responses to about 17 questions that we saw that were common themes, and I'm going to review most of those answers with you tonight. One question that has frequently been raised is, why are you looking at a different calendar? And the main reason is to make sure we're providing the best teachers for our students, because teachers make the most impact of student achievement. And I shared previously about some struggles that we've had with recruiting and retaining quality teachers, and this came up during our calendar development process as an option to potentially recruit more teachers. So the first question on the FAQ is about that why question, and I just stated it's so that we can attract quality staff to make sure we have quality instruction. The length of the school day is also a question. So there has not been a calendar adopted. There's not been actual sample calendars that we're out there promoting, but we've drafted some ideas. So a 4-day calendar could have up to 490 minutes is what we've looked at. A 4-day hybrid calendar, 465 minutes. And if we stayed with the traditional 5-day, most campuses would be between 460 and 465. Currently, the elementary school is at 460. Another question was about, well, which day are you looking at? And we didn't talk about this in December, but after reviewing all of the data for other districts, the district has decided if we were to pursue a 4-day week, we would look at the Friday being the day that students were not in session, because that is the day that we have a 5% greater need for substitutes. So that would reduce our need for substitutes. Some other questions were raised about, well, you talked about reduced holidays. Well, what holidays would we still get? So the holidays that are in a drafted sample 4-day calendar include Labor Day, a week at Thanksgiving, 2 weeks at Christmas, and the week of spring break. So all the major, the big holiday breaks that we have, we continue to have. Another question was, well, what happens with extracurricular and football games that are held on Friday? Those would still be held just like they are this year. Another question was, well, how much instructional time are we going to lose by going to a different calendar? So we are required to have a minimum of 75,600 minutes. And so a sample 4-day calendar has 75,950. The sample 4-day hybrid calendar has 75,795. And the sample 5-day calendar, which is similar to what we have this year, has about 76,890. So that's a difference of about 1,000 minutes, which roughly translates to 2 or 2.5 less days. So if you put all those minutes in day terms. Some questions for staff have centered around pay and work schedules. So the district has stated that there will be no reduction in annual pay Annual pay would remain the same for all employees. The other question that teachers asked was about extra conference period, which we provided last year. Is that our first year? Last year was the first year, in which we had that this year, which was a response to try to give them more time. So in a 4-day or hybrid, we would not be able to have 2 conference periods, but we would have 1 day a month, one of those Fridays, that teachers would come in for planning and professional development. The other question is about staff work schedule. So while the pay would remain the same, people's work schedule may be adjusted week by week depending on what the work schedule looks like. So let's get to the calendar survey. That was released, like I said, on December the 9th and closed on December the 19th. It was emailed to all staff and parents. There was an English version and a Spanish version that was emailed specifically to Spanish-speaking parents. It was posted on our FIC social media site, and thanks to Ms. Draper, it was in the Wilson County News. To consolidate the results, there were 11 Spanish responses on that Spanish survey. So what I did is I took those responses and put them on the English survey. So you're not going to see a disaggregation of data for Spanish responses because I only had 11. There were 8 student responses that were placed on the community survey, and so I removed those and put them on the student survey for the high school. I do have to put a caveat. There was one middle school student who responded to the community survey, so I just said they were a freshman for the high school survey. So their results are counted. I don't know who that student was, but I want to make sure I counted the results. There were 6 duplicates. And so those duplicate responses were removed. So that led us to have a total of 776 staff, parents, and community responses, and 133 high school students. Just a reminder, it's 6:10, so I said if you wanted to talk, 6:15 is the deadline to go sign up, so just a reminder, if you want to do that. All right, so here we go, survey results. The survey responses were represented by about 58% parents, 36% staff, and 6% community members. The staff number is divided between staff with children and staff that do not have children in the district. There appears to be a good distribution of parents based on the campus enrollment. FHS had the most responses with 32%, and they're the campus with the largest population. The early childhood campus, our pre-K campus, had about 6%, and they're the campus that only has about 180 students, so pretty representative of the campuses in the district. So, first question, would you be in favor of a 4-day or 4-day hybrid if the district were to provide childcare on the 5th day? Overall, 68% said yes, about 11% said maybe, and only 21% said no. So I disaggregated that to say, what do the different populations say? So the one in the middle is parents only, and it's pretty similar to the overall responses, but the one on the right-hand side is the staff. So you see the staff is pretty different in that 82% of staff responded yes, and only 8% said no. I also wanted to compare results to the student survey. To be clear, the student survey did not say, are you interested in a 4-day if there's childcare? Didn't think that they would be interested in childcare. Just said, would you be in favor of a 4-day week? And 58% responded with no, and only 24% saying yes. I will make a comment that there was an option for students, as was the community, to ask questions that open-ended, and a lot of the comments from students related to they didn't want to go to school any longer than they already are. This is high school students, and there were questions about extracurricular. So that's why I had the extracurricular question, and I'm going to respond to the length of the day here in just a few minutes. I also wanted to share a comparison with our families who are economically disadvantaged. So the circle graph on the right-hand side is our economically disadvantaged parents, where there were 178 of them, and 63% of those were in favor, about 10% saying maybe, and about 28% saying no. Surprisingly, the greatest concern about the 4-day schedule was no concern. for 42% of all responses and 39% of parents. Adding time to the school day and childcare, quality of instruction were the concerns for parents, ranging from about 11% to 20%. Again, I wanted to do that comparison for economically disadvantaged families, and their no concerns was also the top at 34%. Childcare was the next highest with 20%, and adding time to the day was the third highest with about 15%. Here's a comparison with the staff responses, with 55% of staff having no concerns and 21% were concerned about adding time to the school day. Another question was about which schedule do you think would most benefit student learning? So although not a clear majority, 47% said 4 days, 12% said the hybrid, 16% said either one of those works, and 26% were in favor of keeping a 5-day schedule. The results are similar for parents, with about 30% of parents choosing the 5-day option. Again, there's some differences with staff, with 55% of staff selecting the 4-day option and only 10% of staff choosing the 5-day. When people were asked if a 4-day schedule would improve student attendance, 55% said yes, 19% said maybe. Again, the staff response, which is the chart on the far right, was a little different, with only 10% of staff saying they believe no. 58% of people believe a 4-day schedule would have a positive impact on their families, with 55% of parents saying yes and 18% saying maybe. Again, the staff percentage is a little different, with 76%. So this graph is only the response from parents. So when parents were asked about childcare, what childcare would be needed on a 4-day schedule, 48% said no childcare is needed. 16% they said they would rely on family or older siblings. 9% said they'd use paid childcare, and 8% said they'd alter their work schedule. About 19% said they would use a combination of those options. I also looked at that question for our economically disadvantaged families, and 40% of our economically disadvantaged families said they did not need childcare. 15% said they would be utilizing family and siblings. About 10% said they would have paid childcare or alter their work schedules, and then about 25% said they do a combination of those things. 56% of parents responding to the survey have children that do not ride the school bus. We're just trying to get a feel for transportation. And then the next question was about participation in extracurricular activities. And about 63% of parents responding have students who are participating in extracurricular activities. And then this last question I'm going to share is about the percentage of parents that qualify for free and reduced lunch, and 69% of parents responding did not qualify, but I shared with you the results of those who did qualify, disaggregated out from those families. So that's the community survey. So I'm going to respond to a few of the questions and elaborate a little bit from last month. We shared this information about child care, that the district is contracted with a school provider, not contracted, excuse me, contacted an after-school provider who is willing to provide child care when the district is not in session, and the district intends to supplement that cost, intending that child care to be for students who are pre-K through 5, which is what it is right now for after-school. Also, as was previously shared, this is really not a budget savings measure. It's really a budget neutral. Most of the research I did said the savings was between 0.5% to 2%. So I said, if you just assume 1% in the middle, that would be a savings of about $380,000. Child care costs that the district would look at supplementing on those Fridays could range from $30 to $50 a day per student. So that's where some of that money would come from. Another question was asked previously about, well, you had an increased enrollment, so we might be having extra money. In fact, the district's enrollment has remained relatively flat at about 4,000 students. We did have an increase of 40 students last year to 4,080, but we are down about 15 students to 4,066 currently this year. I also shared this Texas graph that somebody else did the research. The districts that are highlighted in orange are districts that moved to a 4-day school week, or excuse me, didn't move, who are implementing a 4-day school week this year. The districts highlighted in blue are the districts who are implementing a hybrid schedule. So there are 20 hybrid schools, so that top graph is a graph of those. 90% of those hybrid schools are districts that have economically disadvantaged students at above 50%. 3 of those hybrid schools have students enrolled with 2,000 or more students. Then the bottom graph is for the 4-day pure schools. 85% of districts with a pure 4-day have greater than 50% economically disadvantaged population. And 21 of those 109 districts have more than 2,000 students. So I wanted to do a comparison because a lot of this 4-day week started with some very small rural schools. Another question that was asked on the survey or comment that was made was about longer bus routes. And the route time is not expected to change. So for example, if a student's going to ride the bus for 30 minutes after school, we anticipate they would still have a 30-minute ride. Okay? Because the route times would not change. The question that I think appeared to cause some appeared to need some clarity is the impact on the high school. So the high school made a decision that they are moving away from the 5x5 next school year and moving to a traditional 8-period day. So with the move to the 8-period day, the bell schedule for the high school would not need all the extra minutes they have now, so that time would be reduced. And I'm going to show you an example here in just a second. In addition, just as the high school did before we were in 5x5 about 5 years ago, career and technical education practicum classes that have field-based experience. So that's some of our health science students who go to Conley Memorial Hospital for some field experience, our education and training pathway students who travel to other schools to get some field experience. Those classes would be double blocked, which means they would have 2 class periods for that section to allow them to have travel time to make those field-based experiences. Again, all extracurricular activities that we're going to be hosting on Friday will continue. So let me go through this very slowly to make sure I'm clear. This is the bell schedule and the daily minutes for the high school this year. They have 485 minutes, okay? So if, an example for next school year, even if we did not do a 4-day week for the high school, they are going to go down to 465 potentially minutes. This is proposed. That's a decrease of 20 minutes a day. Not even doing the 4-day or a hybrid, just if we were having the same 5-day schedule. If, however, we were looking at a 4-day, this is just an example, they would only need to increase to 490 minutes, which is an increase of 5 minutes over this school year. So that's where I think there might have been some confusion that, high school's going to have to go really long. It would only increase about 5 minutes. In comparison, let's look at the elementary schools. This year and next year, the elementary schools have a bell schedule that is 460 minutes per day. If we were to go to a 4-day, a pure 4-day, then the proposal is they would need to increase to 490 minutes, which would be an increase of 30 minutes per day. If we were doing a hybrid, it would be less than that. I also shared this table at the last meeting, but one thing that's different on this chart is teacher days. Some of my teachers asked this question. So currently, teachers have a 187-day contract, and If we were having a 4-day, an example of the number of days that would work would be 170, and the hybrid would be 173. That's pending a district innovation that has to be approved, but that's the example for teacher days. So we've got a few teachers in here. All right. Wow. That was really fast. So that's the end of my presentation. So now it's an opportunity if you would like to provide feedback, and I've got 4 people that have signed up. I also want to share that you received a note card. If you didn't receive a note card, Ms. Ramos has note cards at the back. If you do not feel comfortable speaking, feel free to write something on the note card and put it in that basket. We'll be glad to look at that feedback as well. If you have questions, if I'm able to answer the question, I have the answer, I will try to answer those questions, but I may not be able to answer questions that you have, but I'll make a note of those so that we can get a response to that. All right, so I have 4 people, and I'm just going to ask you to come and sit at this table when I call your name so we can facilitate the comment section. Marissa Terry, Robert Gamble, Stephanie Cruz, right over here, and Daniel Stone. We'll just come right over here. We'll start with Marissa Terry.
You come right up here. And I attended the school board meeting, so I have a couple of facts in here that came from this slideshow just because I got to hear it a little earlier. So while a substantial salary increase is not possible, by restructuring the school year to a 4-day or hybrid model, the teacher's contract period becomes a more manageable and enjoyable workload and work-life balance. We know restructuring the school year in this manner is an appealing option for teachers, as over 3/4 of staff reported that a change to a 4-day school week would have a positive impact on their family. Over 70% of respondents to the original staff calendar survey felt that a 4-day week would increase staff morale, improve staff retention, make it easier to recruit staff. They also reported to feel it would help decrease student absenteeism and have a positive impact on student outcomes. But it's not just students who miss school. According to an article published by Wilson County News in October of 2023, Floresville ISD has experienced improved staffing as a result of moving to a 4-day school week. Teacher absenteeism declined, which meant that certified teachers were spending more time with their students, and staffing costs declined because substitutes were needed less frequently. Furthermore, it's not just staff who want to make this change. When asked what would benefit student learning the most, less than 30% of parents chose the traditional 5-day school week. In fact, most parent respondents, at 44%, favored the 4-day school week. That means when presented with a choice between a 4-day school week, 5-day school week, or hybrid model, parents reported significantly more positively to the calendar change as a way to improve student learning rather than making no change at all. Importantly, if the district provided childcare, the school day, on the school day that was not in session, 77% of parents and over 92% of staff would not be against moving to a 4-day or hybrid schedule. Okay. With the district provided childcare available, the majority of parents would actually favor moving to a 4-day week or hybrid model rather than keeping the current traditional school week. These results may surprise some, but they should be a welcome surprise to the more than 8% of staff members who originally responded yes to wanting to make the calendar change. Thank you.
That's not meant to be stressful.
My anxiety, sorry.
All right, thank you, Ms. Terry. And now, Robert Gamble.
Just a session to reset.
It's going, okay. So 70% of the respondents on the survey looked like they weren't economically disadvantaged. So I think that the results are a little skewed, although the ones who were economically disadvantaged kind of seem to fit in line, but I just want to kind of point that out. I just want to let you know that my mom always told me that if the person in front of you, George, jumps off the cliff, or you're going to jump off the cliff too, follow after him. And I think that the school district likes to kind of give moral relativism to support their claims that a hybrid or a 4-day week would be best to retain staff. They want to seem to make it look like a lot of other districts are implementing a 4-day or hybrid week, but it looks like around 90% of districts in Texas still stick with that traditional 5-day schedule because it works. Just because George jumps off the cliff doesn't mean that you need to go too. I don't believe that a hybrid schedule is going to make much difference in retaining teachers. What's good for the gander is not always good for the goose. My dad also told me that if it's not broken, don't fix it. There's nothing wrong with a 5-day week. A hybrid or 4-day schedule would really impact the economically disadvantaged families in this area and special needs kids the most. And these are the ones that we should be protecting the most. What's broken is the budget. It needs to be changed to the amount that teachers are paid. Teachers need to be paid what they deserve, and then they'll be retained in the district. I know that's a hard thing, but that's what's broken. Also, the school district was so concerned about kids being on drugs last year that we now have mandatory drug testing. And now we're going to give these same kids a whole day of potentially unsupervised days, right, where they can have free reign. So, that's good. I appreciate it. No, I'm very much done. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Gamble. I do want to make one comment about the budget. So the district's basic allotment, has not changed since 2017, Ms. Angle? 2019. And so if the district would really like for the state to release some money, so contact your state legislatures is what I'm going to say. All right, next up we have Stephanie Cruz.
Just a second, turn this back.
Hi, so I'm Stephanie Cruz. I have several kids that attend here at ISD, as well as several of my nieces and nephews who also attend here. I also come in the perspective of not just a parent, but I've been an educator for 19 years, worked as a teacher, assistant principal, district coordinator. So I come with the perspective across that aspect. I will say that in I have support for going to a 4-day, believing that it will attract veteran or certified teachers. I can say, I thought, hey, maybe I'll look into Floresville, take a slight pay cut if they went to a 4-day. My sister, who recently is going to be coming to FISD. She's been at her district, a veteran teacher, for over 8 years, and only looked at the district because of the discussion of a 4-day week. So I do think that that is enticing to educators who many times need that day with the challenges that come to you as an educator. And then I will say that the other thing that I would like to mention is I know that some concerns have been over the extended school day. I come from districts who have had extended school days from either 15-minute extensions to a 30-minute extension. We saw no negative impact on students. They didn't even pay attention to the fact that there was an extended day. It did not impact the parents as well. As an administrator, it was beneficial in the fact that we were able to add in more minutes to the structure of the lessons, or build in that RTI time intervention for the kids that might have been needed. So in that aspect, I have seen positive. I will say that there is one thing that if we go to the traditional, to the 4-day, the full 4-day, a consideration is when you extend by 30 plus minutes, there does need to be a strategic plan for what that school day looks like. The structure is where the minutes are going to, because you are cutting out that last day that they would not be receiving instruction, as well as the district plan on the coordinator side to restructure the pacing, knowing that you're going to have to take instruction and put it into lesser days. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz. And lastly, I have Mr. Daniel Stone.
All right, I will try to keep this quick, mainly just bulletins. So I know as board administrators, it's your guys' job to tell us that the teachers are the most important or have the most important impact on our kids. That is not true. It's the parents. You know, my dad's been teaching for 12 years. He makes $100,000 a year for the DOD. They're paying for his housing overseas, all that stuff. He is leaving because there's no support in his kids' homes. So we need to find a way to get parents like me that don't get involved much of anything outside of directly with my kids to get involved with school. Help the teachers. Again, I don't mind paying more. I'm also one that a 4-day doesn't affect me. I'm at home all day for my kids anyway. I have talked to parents so that they have to alter their schedule. They are willing to just homeschool kids, which again, that will lower the district enrollment if it affects the budget, which again, I homeschool the kids before we moved down here. The reason why I put them back in the schools because I believe in Floresville. So, and oh, last thing, the about a dozen parents or so and students that are not happy about the high school going back to the traditional 8-day schedule or the 8-period schedule. So that's something to keep in mind. A lot of these kids love the fact they don't have 5 classes. They don't want to take 3 extra. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Okay, so this is kind of the roadmap we've been on, the calendar development process. Again, no decision has been made. We have this community meeting. Our calendar committee and our district education improvement committee are going to be meeting this month, looking at some possible calendars, and then we're going to ask our board in February to give us basically some marching orders on developing a calendar, and then hopefully have a calendar to present to the board for approval in March. So that's kind of our plan moving forward. So, with that being said, here we go. I just ask if you've got those note cards, please turn those in before you leave. The school board will provide next steps for us, as I mentioned, in February, and we anticipate that approval of a calendar in March. I do also want to state that the calendar results that I shared tonight will be shared tomorrow in our ILF ISD for the community and the quick update for staff, as well as posted on our website. So I know I went through those slides, but you will have access to that on the website and in the ILF ISD tomorrow. And with that, thank you for coming.